participatory thing to get you warmed up, because I'm expecting you to participate, and that is to move your chairs in so that we have concentric circles around this inner circle here, all right? If you're one of the cool kids and you're in the back row, please move yourself towards the more front row. We're not going to amplify this, so you're going to want to be in close so you can hear the conversation, all right?
Okay.
Yeah, lovely. Grab a chair.
I didn't realize we were helping somebody. I heard that mentioned during the beginning.
Thank you.
I love the experimentation. I think there wasn't enough happening. So I was like, how can we? Well, let's have an experimentation festival. Then there's like experimentation. And now there's also happening. I love it. That's how you start with a question, you figure out how to answer. That's right. Yeah. And you work on your things that you care about. You know, not only is that what you care about, when you start trying to figure out how you include others, what you care about. Yeah, building the community. It works. Please tell me that Clifford still has the art critique program for the 30-day transit. They do. Yeah. So Sam,
Like 5 hours.
currently an actor.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm gonna try to see Liza. They're like 3 hours. Like they're on the way.
No, great following directions. Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm Nate Morehouse. Ryan mentioned me a little bit earlier. I'm the director of something at the University of Cincinnati called the Institute for Research in Sensing, or you'll also hear it called IRiS. It's an interdisciplinary research institute focused on topics of sensing, perception, and sensor technology development, thought of or conceived of extremely broadly. This is one of the things we do, is these community-based conversations. I'm going to tell you about a couple of other things that we have going on, but the ethos of IRiS is to really spark curiosity and in these topics, to engage with our local community. We do educational programming associated with this as well. But a unique thing about IRiS is that it combines the perspectives from the sciences and engineering with the social sciences, the humanities, and the fine and performing arts as equal conversants in that kind of conversation, all right? We have a few upcoming programs that I just want to tease at first, and then I'll give you a little bit more of a structure for what we're about to do. The first is that we do every other year a conference and expo or festival of sensing called IRiS Ignite. That is Thursday and Friday, October 9th and 10th. It's coming up very soon. It's on UC campus. We have 3 plenary speakers, a Pulitzer Prize winning science journalist named Ed Young, who's just written a best-selling book about animal sensing. That's a free public lecture the evening of the 9th at 7:30, free and open to the public. He's going to talk about that book and the content of that book. We also have Ron Hoy, who's a neuroscientist, who's going to be talking about his career studying singing in bugs and hearing in insects and spiders, and how that's translated into technologies associated with human hearing, like novel hearing aid technologies. And we have Suzanne Boyce, who's going to be talking about the use of novel sensing technologies to assist in speech therapy in children, including ultrasonic feedback technologies. So great plenary speakers, and then 23 oral presentations, 20 artworks and scientific or scholarly posters. We have musicians playing. Jen Howd is going to be doing a performance, as well as several other people to be named. Preston Bell Charles may be also playing, so very exciting spoken word performances. So not your typical academic conference, lots of activations and inspirations. The other thing I'll mention, yeah, go ahead.
I was just kind of, when is Ed Young speaking? He wrote In the Midst World. It's the most fascinating book I have ever read.
Yes.
When is he speaking?
October 9th,
Thank you.
7:30 p.m. Probasco Auditorium. He'll be there to sign books afterwards as well. It's an incredible book, absolutely. And that's going to be the topic of his book, or of his talk. And then a day after that, we're having our first IRiS field trip, which is going to be a sound walk in Fernald Preserve. So join us for that Saturday afternoon, a sound walk with a local sound ecologist. That'll be great fun. Okay, that's just upcoming program in the next month. You are here for one of the things that we love to do. It's called an IRiS Alloy, and it is not a panel discussion. It is a conversation. And when these things work well, you, the audience, are speaking as much of the time as the people that we've invited to be seed crystals in the center of this conversation. That's the point of the geometric form we're taking. You're all close in. Our topic today is going to be disability and creativity through the senses. We really want to engage with this topic by thinking about it from the standpoint of how it's experienced by one or more of the senses. So I'm going to introduce to you the people we've invited to help us with this conversation, but keep in mind that you are also an expert. You are also a valued voice in this, and you're allowed to raise your hand, chime in thoughts, questions, etc. Okay? Now, I'm always a little nervous to introduce the folks we invite because they're so accomplished and incredible human beings. So I need notes to make sure that I don't screw this up. We'll start to my left. Cheli Reutter is here with us. Cheli is an award-winning educator and a writer in the Department of English at the University of Cincinnati, where she directs the Medical Humanities Certificate Program, the Disability Studies Certificate Program, the Liberal Arts in Medicine, Health, and Society degree, and she's coordinating an upcoming conference called New Directions in Disability Studies in October. Same dates as IRiS Ignite. So you could go to UC and bounce around in those.
You can come from 8:30 to 6 Thursday and Friday to the conference, and you can come at 7:30 p.m. to hear Ed.
There you go. See, no conflict, really. Okay. We all just experienced Molly's incredible artistic performance. Yeah, come on. So as you probably understood, Molly is a composer and performer whose work explores disability as a creative source across composition, performance, collaboration, and research. Yeah, thanks for being here and sharing your gifts with us. And then the other person that shared their gifts with us is Jerome Ellis, who's a disabled Grenadian Jamaican American artist, surfer. I don't think we get to see that today.
Yeah.
And person who stutters. And they work across a huge variety of forms: music, performance, writing, video, photography. Yeah, super wonderful to have you with us, Jerome.
Oh, I'm honored.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, Brianna Matzke. Right here. Many of you know Brianna. She is always doing interesting things in town here. We are so grateful to have her in Cincinnati. Pianist, educator, producer, new executive director of the Wyoming Arts Center, which now everybody's going to start going to. Yeah,
That's right,
super
that's
exciting.
We'll bring them in.
Founder and artistic director of the Response Project, executive director of the Cortona Sessions for New Music, and executive director of Concert Nova. You know, usually people are one ED, but somehow Brianna manages to do it all. Okay, and last but not least is Stephanie Jones, here to my right. Stephanie is the Technology and Accessibility Coordinator for Clovernook Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, where she works with BVI youth, their families, and educational settings around assistive technology options, training, adaptive sports, self-advocacy. I don't know how many people know that we have the world's largest Braille printing press here in Cincinnati, actually. So if you don't know about Clovernook, you really should acquaint yourself with their programming. They're wonderful folks. They would be willing to give you a tour. Sometimes you walk out with like a Rolling Stone issue that's Braille printed. It's very cool. Not talking from personal experience or anything. Stephanie serves as the Ohio Regional Braille Challenge Coordinator and the co-host of Clovernook's podcast, Boldly BVI, and was also part of the U.S. Blind Tennis Association team who demonstrated the sport at the U.S. Open for the first time in September of 2023. So, woo. All right. Cool. So I'm going to sit down at this point and pose the starting question, and then we really just want to wander together in conversation. There's no intended place to get to. And as a matter of fact, when the time's up, we're going to want to keep going. And what you're encouraged to do is to just take the conversation out into your lives, right? Okay, so, and I'll let people speak up freely whenever they want to. But the starting question is, tell us a bit more about the relationship between disability and creativity for you and your work, whatever that might be, but do it by describing it through one or more of the senses.
So I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
For me, my disability leads through my creativity in my work and what I'm doing every day, and trying to incorporate not just one of the senses, but the four that I have remaining. So since I don't see it, it's a matter of trying to teach people how to listen, and not listen, just with seeing it, but listen solely by hearing it, touching it, and what are you experiencing through that touch, or feeling, when you're tasting something, really understanding that there's more to it than just a taste.
I feel like in my work, I think about accessibility a lot. And so I feel like I'm thinking about the sense, like, do I have the oral, visual, and ideally like a tactile haptic output, which is not like 100% accessibility, but I feel like it's often ideal to touch upon those different senses. And I just had a piece of Jerome's in an installation I curated, and we had these kind of vibrational pillows, and I felt like that was really beautiful, different sensory output of the oral material. And people said it felt like a sound, like hot tub or something like that. And so again, I feel like I'm always thinking about it. Do I have different senses accounted for?
Yeah, and Stephanie, you were talking about a new device to go to an FC Cincinnati game with, where gameplay could be sensed tactily.
Right,
yeah.
so they're building these tablets where I can't see it, but I don't have to worry about that. I'm just getting to feel the action, and then therefore understand the play of the ball in the game.
Wow.
So there's all these new things that are coming out. And I think that sometimes with your disability, what we don't understand, we're so focused on the loss. We're so focused on, I don't have this. And I think that goes to what I heard in one of the pieces about the cure. And I thought, do I want a cure for my blindness? And that changes who I am. Do I want that? But I can still experience life through touch and through other things, and I hear the music, and it's good.
So I have a neurological condition called essential tremor that causes my hands to shake all the time. I'm mildly shaky today, and I'm a pianist. And so immediately when people learn that I have this condition, and then they learn that I'm a pianist, they go, oh no. And because they assume that there must be something missing from how I approach the piano. And piano is all about touch and listening. And they think, oh, that must be so difficult for you. But truthfully, I'm having a little bit of trouble answering this question because I have no idea what it would be like to play the piano without my tremor. Right? And so perhaps if there was a way to lift me out of my body and put me in somebody else's body that doesn't have a tremor, I would notice what I'm missing, but my complete whole self is experienced through the tremor. And so my sense of touch at the piano is through that tremor, and the sounds that come out of the piano are through the tremor. So I don't know. That's just what comes to mind.
And I have to tell you all that when Nate asked me to be on the piano, I'm sorry, I would love to be on the piano, but when he asked me to be on the panel, I was actually, at first I said, but wait, because I am not a creative. I do identify as disabled and neurodivergent, but not as a creative. I identify as a reflective. And so, but I am very interested in the way disabled knowledge is built. And I have experienced it from so many other creative and artistic others, the way creativity and disability come together. So he said, bring it and share about it. And I am pretty sure that somewhere in this conversation, I'm going to be talking about what happened yesterday at Christchurch Cathedral. That's all I'm going to say on those lines, as well as some other examples.
Yeah, I literally got an email back from Cheli saying, "Oh no, you should speak with so-and-so." And then half an hour later, "Oh wait, hang on a second." I was like, Cheli, there's a reason I asked you. So thanks for saying yes.
Thanks for, I love the company, I have to say.
I love what you say, Cheli, of the word reflective. That helps me to articulate what I've been trying to articulate in response to this question. And I resonate with what you said, Brianna, about your relationship to the piano through touch. For me, my first instrument was the saxophone, and I've stuttered since I was 4 or 5, and I started playing the saxophone when I was 13, and I had played violin a little bit when I was 10 for a year in elementary school, but didn't quite take. And when I started the saxophone, I immediately felt very connected to it. And years, like over the years, I started to realize that maybe part of why I connected to it so much was because I could express myself with my mouth, but not have to navigate the stutter, which makes speech into a very makes speaking. It introduces certain forms of labor into speaking that I've always found challenging in different ways. But within like 2 months or so after starting to play the saxophone, I realized that I was with my my teacher, a wonderful teacher named Alex Myers, and we were sitting in front of a book of duets, and he started to count the rhythm so we all could start, so we both could start at the same point. And when he went to start, I started stuttering on the saxophone, and it was so jarring, and I felt really thrown off. I remember. And gradually, over the years, I began writing music where, like the music that I shared yesterday, where for the most part there's often not a steady beat, so that I create the conditions to where I wherever I start playing is always right. Which wasn't conscious, but I think it was shaped from years of feeling like I was not speaking in the right, not speaking in the right rhythm in the daily conversation. So I think for me the sense that I'm thinking of here is not. In this moment, I'm not thinking of touch or sight or hearing or smell or sight, but I'm thinking of the sense of like a kind of balance, moving through time, and I think in music I try to create a situation where the way that I need to move through time as a stuttering person is reflected in the music. That's why I love the word reflective. It feels like the stutter is the sun, say, and the music, I tried to build a mirror so that I reflect what the stutter gives me outwards.
I love that because to me, that tells me that we hear this word disability, right?
Mhm.
And when you break it down, it means without ability.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you get this diagnosis and people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like Brianna said, it's an immediate negative thought.
Mm-hmm.
But what you've done with yours is that you've taken it and embraced it and made it into, people probably congratulate you for your music all the time. And it was wonderful and lovely and awesome. And they're also celebrating your disability. And don't even realize it.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, thank you.
It's being a musician raised in the classical tradition in particular. There are all of these connotations with ability that come with that. Like this micro example of your teacher counting off and you couldn't join in. That little micro trauma is what classical music pedagogy often is.
Yeah.
Is like perform, achieve. It's very much like trying to train for the Olympics or something. You know? And as a result, audiences in classical music often value virtuosity as the ultimate in artistry. That's what they listen for is, wow, listen how fast they can play.
Right.
And I just, I also, I'm rambling now, but I also feel like that's a kind of reflection on a capitalistic society in general, and you're valued for what your output is, and the more you can output, the more you're valued. And so, one of the things that I've moved toward since graduating from a conservatory is trying to make music that ignores virtuosity as a value altogether. And the value that it is still a V value, but it's vulnerability that I'm much more interested in. I want to get to know people in the rawest form as they're on stage. And that's what I try to do too, in the best way that I know how.
It's actually my dissertation topic. It's like virtuosity from disability, because I felt like people kept asking for pieces. They're very virtuosic, and I knew if I just gave them a drone to hold for an hour, like they would not be happy, or they want the fast, impressive. I feel like I always say like Olympian-like. And after especially seeing Jerome's performance yesterday, I feel like I want to like redo a chapter on your performance, because you start with a visual description of the space, like, and just thinking like, does a performance always have to start with music? Or like you just take a second to describe the space like you do in yourself. And I feel like I haven't been to a performance lately with so much like silence, which I love, and not an awkward silence or, oh, he forgot something. It's really built in, like you're saying, the stutter. And, not always have to fill things in with sound, which I know I do instinctively, like in a bad way, or I always want some sound going. And just, I really love that, again, how it kind of reinvented the concert expectation.
I would dare say that what you all are talking about is a beautifully disruptive practice, by the way. And I mean, so I think when folks might, first they'll hear just, the average person might hear, oh, wait, you're taking away our virtuosity, or you're taking away whatever it is that we think we prize. But I can recall, for example, going to hear you last year in the Elliston Poetry Room at the University of Cincinnati, where something that I thought that sort of a disruption that you made that was also an inclusion and was also aesthetically amazing is that you integrated the ASL interpreter intentionally and in this sort of profound experiential way. I mean, you talked before about one of the senses being above and beyond the five that we know, this sort of feeling the space around you or the time around you, that sort of existing, I don't even know the word for it, but that sort of sense that I think this disability and creativity can actually be really generative in that space. And you,
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cheli. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, please.
Loving this conversation so far. One thing that it made me think of, talking about this, going to vulnerability, thinking about this kind of disruptive practice or like reflecting your disability through your music. And I'm thinking about like recorded music, and when you purchase like a CD or something, like, you know, remember when we used to do that? And how many hours people go to the studio to record and then to re-record so it sounds perfect, and how much is lost in that process. And then how much like you all are trying to be in the moment to really like live through the music and that flow and that balance that you were talking about, and how when we attempt to record something in a studio, how much of that can be lost.
Yeah, that's something I think about so often. Yeah.
My favorite recordings are the ones that have flaws in them.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I like purposely listen for it, or the live recording, like live albums too.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many musicians are in the room right now to make music? I'm just curious.
Very tiny.
Yeah.
Define musician, is it about making music at all? Or
Any, yeah.
It's not my job.
Yeah. So when I go into the studio to record, I have a 5-take maximum. most of the time.
Oh, I love that.
For this exact year, you said that whatever happens is those 5 takes is me. And unless something catastrophic happens, I'll be happy with what I'm able to produce, and I don't need to strive to be something I'm not in that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool that you can do that on a level that's not in your basement by yourself. I stay in my basement by myself, and I'm kind of like very afraid to step out, and I'm okay with that because in my basement by myself, I'm the best that's ever. I know that I don't actually have the skill to say that, but I have these moments where I'm like, I'm better than the guy who plunks with one hand should be. So, you know, if I can get that just for me, cool. If you can get that doing it while you're doing a record, that's even better. You know what I mean? But not always, there's always the, you know, when you step outside of your basement, it's like, what does society say? You should be making a CD that sounds perfect, you know? If you have a disability, you should be ashamed of this part of it. And it's like, there's all these opinions of society that you can choose to listen to, and choose to neglect, you know? So I think that this topic today, I'm like, I like some of my disability. Like, so I have arthritis, and I decided to play piano during COVID or play keys. And I'm never gonna play like the keys because I have arthritis, but I don't care until I'm like willing to accept some gloves because I still get to have those moments where I'm like, wow, I'm kind of good. So I mean, it's just about what you're trying to go for. And I wish more people knew they could have fun and be creative and suck.
Yeah.
Being good is not a prerequisite to have fun. being
Yes.
creative.
Yeah.
And so I wish more people do that because it's,
Yeah.
it's a cool feeling to get that.
Yeah. Oh, please.
This is an incomplete thought in the works, so my apologies in advance for that. But I was just thinking about how people use with mental illness and with neurodivergence. So I have ADHD that wasn't diagnosed till I was in my mid to late 30s, and some OCDs that's more like pure, oh, my house is a disaster, so it's like not that kind of OCD, but more like the kind that's stuck in your brain. And so in thinking about treatment towards, when you're trying to interrupt your brain, there's the use of senses, right? Like name 5 things you see, name, 2 things you smell, name 3 things that kind of thing. And so it's a healing, or it's an interruption, right? And so that you can keep on going with your day or with your tasks and whatnot. And I was thinking about, so I'm a creative person and I was a creative writing major, but because of those things going on in my brain, I could not function within the school and like writing and doing the things. And then I did other things and I was a stay-at-home mom. And then when my marriage ended, I was like, well, it was so nice. What am I going to do with myself? And I had this notion that my brain was inherently broken in a way that could like function in a society and like keep me afloat and keep my children afloat. And I had a great therapist that pointed out to me that she thought I had ADHD. And every friend that I told her, was like, oh, yes, you do. But anyway, through all of that, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do something creative because I won't be able to fulfill the creative thing to do to make that, whatever. So I became a nurse, and then I eventually became a nurse practitioner. But the art of medicine, I always like my science brain is not as strong, but like my ability to creatively think with patients and families is the strong part, and find the details. But within that artwork of medicine, I still deal with the same things that I've always dealt with. And I have found so much that those go into the senses to move forward. And then today this conversation was making me think like pen to paper, you're feeling like the pen in your hand and like on the paper, or like singing, you're hearing your own voice come out. And how art is so healing through all the senses. And if there's a particular sense loss, of course, finding that beauty and that feeling and that connection and creating something beautiful through the other senses that are still present. But also just thinking about it through the lens of neurodivergence, mental illness, and how, sense and all the senses come together to heal that, and how it makes so much sense that art can come out and be a beautiful representation of what is inside, but also a healer. So that's my incomplete thought.
No.
That was a complete thought.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Biden.
No, absolutely.
Do you feel like that's somewhat of a superpower for you though sometimes?
Which part?
Just like your disability or your late stage diagnosis, like sometimes I'm like, I feel like I have a couple diagnoses pending, but I don't want them because I don't want to treat them because I like the weirdness that I have. Like, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, if someone's like, I could take that away and you could slow down, I'm like,
I have more than they
Weird,
want to
I'm
try.
used to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely hear it. I think maybe not quite there yet. I think I have more of a like, if I would have known about this as a kid, like I think I ignored the things lost. But
almost like it's the fuel for your creativity.
I think it is. I mean, the creativity is there whether I funnel it with something purposeful or not, right? And so I think that, I thought, oh, I'll just do this hard science route, and I will kind of issue, other than going and appreciating other people's creations. But it's there regardless, like it pours in no matter what.
If you don't mind, I've heard a couple, like 3 different interesting words to me in this exchange, which are diagnosis, healing, and cure. And in light of what happened last hour, with some of the stuff we listened to last hour, I'm not so sure that healing and cure are necessarily the same thing, the way we necessarily think about them being the same thing. So I think we have like these, within the context of these 3 words, we have choices that we can make with how they fit
See, people so many times think that there has to be a physical action to mean healing. So people will come up to me and say, oh, don't you want to pray for your sight to come back? Don't you want your sight back? And I'm like, the loss of the sight caused me to be on the world's greatest stage in tennis, right? The loss of my sight has caused me now to be a podcast host. The loss of the sight just took me to Paris, Geneva, Switzerland, and Italy for a presentation of a conference 2 weeks ago. The loss of my sight brought me here. What did having the sight give me? I mean, I was getting ready to buy a house and getting ready to go to pharmacy school, and those would have been great things and everything, but see, if I go back and say, no, I want the sight back, I'm denying who I am now. And I think sometimes we have all these negative connotations with the diagnosis. And I think for me, a lot of what I want to convey on the podcast is that diagnosis was here. Let's move out of it. Because you didn't die. You didn't go home in a box. You're still here. And so like you just said, Cheli, it's a choice. I choose to live, and I'm going to choose to live the best bold, blind, and visually impaired life I could have. And the rest of y'all have to deal with it. I mean, that's what I want to see people do, is live and then explore their creativity, or accept that they're making great music in the basement and take it out of the basement and play it on the first floor. Because what if someone else could enjoy it? But you're taking that gift from all of us because it's in the basement. So those are some of the things I try and think of. You know, there aren't times when this is an easy life for me. Like for some of us in the circle, there's probably times it's not an easy journey, right? But how do I move past that part? Because at that piece, that journey is now not for me. I need to make a better way for someone who comes behind me. And so sometimes maybe focusing on that gets me through that rough passage in my journey.
I did have my hand up. So I was wondering, what I've been hearing so far is a lot about how the disability has impacted the life and has impacted the art. And I was wondering about the other way around. It's like, how much does the art help? How much does this transform the way you see the disability? And how much does it support a growth process or a healing process? Or
Well, Jerome, you spoke to that when you talked about discovering what the saxophone did for you.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, and thank you too. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, another big aspect of that was related was from like the age of like 19, I started working I was living in New York. I was going to college in New York City, and my best friend James, he was studying theater at NYU, and I started working with him, and we started making theater together. And at first it was James is a storyteller, and so he would tell stories and I would play music alongside him. So I wouldn't speak at all. Even though from being a child I had wanted to be an actor and I wanted to perform, but I when I was a child I like closed that door because I thought, my thinking at the time was, oh, because I have a stutter, I can't do that. And it was only years later that I learned about Marilyn Monroe and James Earl Jones and other actors who stuttered. But so we would make this theater together, and for years and years. And what I gradually like realized was that there's like an agreement, like a pact of listening that is often at play in concerts and plays and things, where the audience listens and performers speak. And I started to notice that kind of listening was what I was craving so often as a person who stutters. It was very rare for an audience member in the situations I was in to interrupt or to mock or to walk away or to turn another person, like all things that happened to me in like at the coffee shop in daily life. And so when I had 2 speech therapists in my early 20s who were amazing and so supportive, and they really helped me release a lot of the shame that I had. And so I gradually, after working with them, started to write these little monologues for the theater pieces that me and James would give, and I realized that I felt actually safer stuttering on stage than I did in daily life, which was very, very counterintuitive. I would think that speaking on a stage would be much scarier, but because this built-in agreement that is often in place, that the audience listens with a certain kind of attention. Doing that for years helped give me a lot of helped like show me that kind of listening is possible, and that I had already been receiving from my friends and family, but to be in front of strangers and stuttering very openly, like doing something like this when I was in my early 20s, I would just like refuse to speak in public. So that's a big way that the art impacted me. No, thank you.
I feel sort of similarly that once I put my full identity on stage, the audiences were what healed me.
Mm.
Yeah, being seen fully. It was scary the first time, and then after I performed, being open about my tremor, people came up to me afterward with tears in their eyes to say thank you. So that was the audiences were everything.
Kind of a related follow-up question to yours, which I really like that. So I think for a lot of artists, like there's creating art for yourself, and then there's creating art for other people. But in the creating art for yourself, I'm curious if you can comment on how creating art can be like a way to process, like a way to process your emotions, your diagnosis, what's going on in your life, external factors, internal things, and kind of how that art has also helped you kind of in thinking about your disability.
I definitely like with things, especially that frustrate me, I try to channel into the art in a more productive way, like the topic of like help or something with disability, like how some people often like assume you might need help and you don't want help, or the opposite, like you want help and people aren't offering it. Like I find that really fascinating topics, or like cure or something. So those things I try to like channel into my art rather than just be continually like frustrated.
And you also articulated in one of your pieces this really like charged relationship. I'm going to use you, and you say it over and over again, this kind of insistence around drawing something from your relationship with
Yeah, I think that was written around, or I think I was using my right side so much. I think that was written during COVID. I was actually just on the computer. But, again, just like channeling it into lyrics and things like that, and things that result of like disability in a way.
Yeah, that was really moving for me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, thinking about creativity and what it's meant for disability studies and I think the limits of creativity within the arts and then outside of it. I'm wondering, there's this text called the Feminist Technoscience Manifesto that talks about how disabled people are designers in their own worlds of everyday life. And you all have talked a lot about how you are designers of the creative worlds that you inhabit, but specifically the arts creative worlds that you inhabit. Do you see your role as a designer as part of a political statement that rejects a kind of ableist placement of disabled people as clients and receivers of technology rather than designers?
That was loaded.
I love that. Yeah, I think, well, something I'm thinking about reflecting on your set, Molly, was like, I was so moved watching the way you used different forms of technology, and further, I was like, oh, I'm reflecting like to me, like your music itself feels like a form of technology, in the sense of like that. For me, like experiencing your music, I feel that I'm able to access something, to feel something, to live in a certain way that I would not be able to without it, in the way that using a hammer enables me to shape the world in a certain way, which to me is so powerful. So yeah, and I think for myself, I would say that I think one thing that I am interested in doing with music is to it's hard to say. Actually, I'm going to pause and think about it more because I want to find the right words for it. I feel an emotional response to your question. I just have to find the words.
I would say when you talk about music technology, I read this article years ago that said, oh, digital music technology, you don't always know how it's going to sound or look like when a performer walks on stage. And that's what excited me even more about using it, even though it's like continual trials and errors if it works or not. But because like the intersection of that and disability, because sometimes when a disabled or visibly disabled performer walks on stage, you don't know exactly how it'll sound or look, what they're going to do. And I feel like with new technology, then it provides this fertile starting ground to not be like, oh, how are they going to play the piano this time, or something. That makes sense because you don't know exactly what will come out of those instruments. So yeah, I would say that's what really excites me about newer music technology.
Are you talking about it creates a performance environment where the quote unquote supposed to is removed?
Yeah, I feel like mostly, yeah, I feel like that's or the expectation of you're not coming up to a piano or whatever, and an instrument kind of.
Yeah. I mean, to really zoom out or maybe zoom in, I don't know, but pianos are very rigid instruments, and there's a certain way that you're supposed to approach a piano. And I don't know. I'll never forget the first time I saw someone reach in and play the strings of the piano.
Oh, wow.
And that was a political moment for me, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, some of what you were saying and have been sharing today, and even just the tennis work, is a way of showing what wasn't possible before, but is possible through your example. And whether you conceive of that as a political statement or simply opening up a way, you said earlier about this is harder or there is hidden work in this for me, but my hope is that it opens up a way for those that might follow me. So there is this way in which you're opening space around what is possible.
Well, I think about even something like this discussion. We wouldn't be having this 20 years ago because it would have just been too hush-hush that we just couldn't talk about these things in this open room. And God forbid to invite these people and celebrate these disabilities and it not be Disability Awareness Month. I mean, we're just like doing all these things right now. And I think about the fact that you talked about is it a political statement, and I think about, I don't know, I can't say it's necessarily a political statement, but I know no one looks like me at the table. And I used to be, I don't know what the right word is, ashamed, but I used to think, oh, no one looks like me at the table, but I wasn't trying to get to the table to fill in the space. And now, oh no, I'm at the table. I'm in the room where it happens, and I'm going to continue to be in the room where it happens. And, but I don't want it just to be me in the room. I want to bring others in the room and figure out how do we blend it all together? Because you're talking about this rigid performance and this thing. And I heard back here about the art and you make it a certain way, but isn't art in the eye of the beholder? It could be the most perfect. I just stood in front of 3 Leonardo da Vinci's in Italy. I didn't see a single one of them. Okay? I didn't see a single one of them. But I cried over being able to touch the bust of Nero. Because it included me, right? I had this, I got to use another sense. And so that was the most beautiful thing to me. And that's the thing that brought the tears to my eyes, that and the tactile relief of the Venus by Botticelli. And having sight up until 19 years ago, yes, I have some idea what this looks like, but there's nothing like having it under your hands and seeing it in another way. So I don't know if that's a political statement or it's just what I said.
In some ways, I would suggest that the moment that we step out with our disabilities and claim any sort of authority, even in the very microcosm that you described at the beginning, that we might say, I'm going to be building and creating within my own universe, or that I have. That's when in the literal sense of taking part in the polis, we are doing that. It's political. Instead of just sort of apologizing for our bodies or our minds or the way we occupy space in the world, when we do that, it's like, okay, I'm okay. I'm going to move forward with this, not as somebody, not as this buddy, but bringing my whole authentic self to the table. And I know I don't know that much about technology, but I was thinking about the other kind of mediums that we're pushing up against. You talked about the piano and the limits of the piano, which maybe aren't as limiting, or the limits of the artistic form, which I have to get it in there because I'm going to sell Reva Lehrer, who's the keynote speaker at the Disability Studies Conference, and I know that, and I'm going to do an alt text of a little prop that I bring. Sorry, I'm a teacher, which means I'm a hustler. I just don't move without some kind of props with me.
Oh,
but so Reva Lehrer did a portrait called 66 Degrees, and Rigoletto has spina bifida, and in the self-portrait, it's has many colors, many different shades of green, which are not represented here, but it shows herself and sort of flowing into the water, and the boundaries are few and far between herself and the water, but very clearly marking the 66-degree curvature in her back. So I mean, I think one of the things that is so beautiful to me, I mean, taking the artistic mode, which I think she found both sides to your question, but she then she spun it into herself and then spun it back out to the audience that she was going to push up. She was absolutely going to reject whatever kind of limitations of the medium that I think were put on.
So we're to the end of our time. I want to just maybe leave us with a quote that feels really relevant to me. I just shared it with a friend today, so it's fresh to mind. It's by Ann Wilson Schaaf, and she said, "You need to claim the events of your life to make yourself yours." And I think one of the things that I'm hearing from all of you is a claiming of self, to make yourself more fully yourself and your life more fully yours. And I think there's immense courage in claiming all of it. And I'm seeing that courage. So I really, really appreciate all of your sharing this weekend during this hour. Let's give a round of applause. And a quick thank you to Ryan Hall and Talk Low Festival.
Give everyone a quick lay of the land. We're going to need to clear out of here. Jess Lamb and her band is going to set up in here. We just opened food and beverage over there. So feel free to mosey on over, get some food, get some drinks, and then come back over here for yet another.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, thank you.